And joining us right now, Peabody Award winning the great Bill Rhoden. How are you, Bill?
Hey, how's it going? How you doing?
Doing well, doing well. Listen, I've always wanted to ask you this as a kid growing up in Baltimore, hearing so much about you. You grew up in Chicago. You're a Chicago kid. You passed a lot of colleges and universities to get to Morgan. Why Morgan State University coming out of Chicago?
Well, Morgan kind of called me. Morgan selected me. They chose me. They said, let us save this boy's life. Well, it wasn't that drastic, but of course, went to high school in Chicago and was playing football at Harlan High School in Chicago, and wasn't highly recruited, but the captain of the Harlan High School football team was a guy named Mark Washington, and Mark was 2 years ahead of me. He was the captain of the football team. It was a big deal, and I looked up to Mark, and Mark went to Morgan, and so little did I know, my high school coach Sherman Howard and Earl Banks, who was the head coach at Morgan at the time. They were best friends. They both played at Phillips High School in Chicago, and that's kind of how recruiting went at a lot of HBCUs.
Right.
It was sort of word of mouth, and hey, I got a kid for you.
Yeah.
And so, Mr. Howard essentially told me that I was going to Morgan, and again, it was sort of like that. I mean, I was. In high school, I loved writing, and I was on the school newspaper and all that, but I was kind of sleepwalking, otherwise. And, when Mr. Howard told me about Morgan and going to Morgan and playing football at Morgan, that was a bet. And, of course, at that time, we're talking about 1968.
Right, which is a different time back then. I mean, was it a different level of accountability for you coming to an HBCU back then?
Well, it wasn't even so much HBCUs. Black colleges back then played a very high level of football because, most of the schools in the South, the white schools like Alabama and Texas, they were not recruiting black athletes. So you had programs like Grambling, Texas Southern, Prairie View, Morgan. We had these great programs because that's where you had all this great talent going. And Morgan had not lost a game in 3 years. And so I had a substitute teacher, a guy named Gloucester Richardson. A lot of his family had gone to Jackson State, and he played with the Kansas City Chiefs. And when I told him I was going to Morgan, it was like royalty because the great Willie Lanier, who was the middle linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs, he had gone to Morgan and he was playing with Kansas City. So it was a big deal. And so that's kind of how it evolved. And I keep telling people that Morgan chose me. They kind of reached out and said, no, you're going here. And it was like the greatest thing that really happened to me. I mean, it was just from day one, it was just such a, it was just the perfect place for me to go. We had a great English department at the time, and probably still now. And I had some great mentors, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful place for me. And although, that September, we were scheduled to play Grambling at Yankee Stadium. And that summer, Howard Cosell had done this documentary on Grambling football called 100 Yards of Glory or something like that.
Yeah.
And, it was a great documentary and it was just so much hype. And we got a letter saying that we were going to be playing Grambling Yankee Stadium. It was just very exciting times. And so that's how I got to Morgan. And it was just really, I love Baltimore. I took my first plane ride.
And Mr. Rhoden, we're running out of time right now, but it was a great choice for Morgan to choose you. and you talk about some of the greats, and you are truly one of the greats, my friend, a hero in this business to many of us. Thank you so much for your time this evening.